Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome back to the basics of working drawing. Today we will start with the 6th module, which is on site planning and layouts. We will continue from the previous module. This is the part 2 of the previous module, which is site planning and layout. In this particular module, we will be studying about the site utilities and the area planning in the complete site, whichever is in the domain of the architect's office. We do have a site plan, as we have discussed earlier, that in a site plan, which is a very important document, a very essential document when we are developing the design for a particular client as architects. So, in a site plan, we have the detailed orientation of the building, and once the building orientation is decided on and the location of the site landscape elements have been decided on, we start working around with the utilities. So, what are things are in the utilities? We have the water supply layout, we have the drainage layout, we have the sewerage layout, we have the electrical supply layout and other sources, other things, right. For example, if you have a if you have a tall building, if you have a building where several residents will be living, if it is a residential tower, then in that case you will also have a fire extinguisher supply, wet riser, dry riser supply layouts as well, right. So, that is the fire extinguishing supply layout which will be provided, that is another utility plan. In this particular module, we will look at individual smaller units, say for example a bungalow or similar clustered buildings in a smaller site. So, to give it as an example, right. So, along with the building layout, building orientation plans which are in the site plan and the site landscape plans, utility plans are also very essential to be provided to the client, to be provided to the contractor on site, and accordingly they can develop the site, right. For a site of very large area or site which has a very detailed landscape detail of a lot of different things clustered together. For example, if you are trying to develop a business park, so you will have several different facilities which are clustered together. So, in that case there are the whole site plan is distributed in smaller plans of certain areas, and you will have a greater master site plan onto which all of these key plans are plotted. So, in case of a large site plan, you will have a detailed landscape plan as well. You will have a proposed contour plan if the landscape is quite large and you are playing around or you are doing a lot of iterations within the site contour, then in that case the proposed contour plan is also to be provided, right. Along with that, in the previous lecture as well, in the previous module as well, we discussed that the road layout is an essential plan to be given with all the utility plans, because often road layout becomes the key track along which the utilities are being laid down in the site, right. Now, as we discussed earlier, the basic utility plans which are to be provided, these are also close to mandatory, that yes, you need to provide all of this as a preliminary layout or a primary direction for the contractor to lay the utilities on site, right. This is within the site boundaries. Okay. So, what are the basic plans or utility plans to be provided? First one and very important one is the water supply layout, right. So, how a water would come inside, the municipal water supply will be taken inside and provided as a output through taps within your bathrooms, your kitchens and other supply, your gardening area. So, all of that is to be laid out. Next is your drainage layout, right. So, whatever waste is generated inside, that has to be drained out, right. So, your bathroom drainage, your kitchen drainage, all of that is to be drained out and to be connected to the main sewer line outside. That is another layout which is to be provided. Next is your sewage layout. So, your toilet waste, grey water which is being drained out, that needs to go either to the soak away pit or to the external sewage line. So, all of that is to be plotted out as well. Next is your electrical layout. Now, every site will have a power supply coming by the local state electricity board or union territory electricity board within the context of India. So, in that case the electricity inward line is also to be plotted, right, or also to be made sure that where you will be placing the electricity DP box, where you will be placing the first distribution board, where will be the distribution panel. So, all of these things are to be laid out, right. And as I mentioned earlier as well, that if you have a very large site, say in context of the example which I gave as a business park, if you are doing a business park, if you are designing a business park, the area is usually quite large, and in that case a master site plan is produced, and along with that the smaller area plans or the whole site plan will be distributed in smaller pockets in a grid usually, and all of these grids are numbered. So, each of the grid becomes one individual master plan or one individual site master plan for that particular area of the site, right. And all of that, all of those smaller site layouts or smaller site plans need to have all the utility plans which connect to the main master utility plan as well, right. So, this helps a lot in understanding creating the complete site element layout, and you are actually plotting all the utilities as they will be on site, as they will be on your site location. Each of this is to be in correlation with each other as well, right. So, we need to be very careful that the water supply line is not exactly the same as the drainage layout, right. Then it does not make sense, then actually you are taking in water from the drainage water itself, which is absolutely unacceptable. So, you need to be careful, and there should be always test done before you deliver all of the site drawings to the consultant, that you need to double check that there are no or very minimal layers of overlap. If there are overlaps, certain interventions are also taken care of, that you are putting the water line much lower or putting the water line much higher, water supply line much higher compared to the drainage layout, and so forth, right. Electrical layout is also to be segregated from the water supply layout and all the other three water layouts which are there, right. So, that is very important. So, segregation needs to be taken care of. Okay. So, jumping into directly the layouts. So, first one is water supply layout. So, water being essential element for survival in any kind of dwelling unit, which we know, water supply becomes a very primary or very important critical layout, which is to be provided by the architect's office or a consultant, if it is hired, if a consultant is hired for utilities and supplies for a design. So, often in case of large plans or large layouts such as the business park, as I mentioned earlier, often there are supply layouts or utility consultants who come into picture. They are also called sometimes MEP consultants, mechanical, electrical and plumbing consultants. So, these consultants within your design layout, within your structural layout, they will try to align all of the utilities, and then with minimal destruction or minimal obstruction to the existing structural plan, and they will try to do the MEP, which is mechanical, electrical and plumbing. So, all of these three things are done, and there are several softwares as well available within which there are people who are working and creating layouts for their clients. So, coming back to the water supply layout, in case of water supply particularly, if you see that the system of water distribution is designed on the site, right. So, you are going to have a water outlet on your site. You will have to take the water line and water pipeline to be directed to that particular output, and then you will be using that particular output as your water supply for that location, right. For example, you want to have sprinklers in the gardening area. So, you will have to have the pipeline connecting to the sprinklers, and all of that is to be laid out in your design. So, water distribution system is very important to satisfy the required water needs and your supply as well. So, in your water distribution system, it consists of your pipelines, your storage facilities, your pumps and other accessories, right. So, all of this is to be laid out by the architect's office, right. So, in this case, another thing that is important is often the dimensions of the pipelines are also given. We will talk about this in subsequent slides, And also often the storage capacity, like the overhead tank or the underground tank capacity, water storage tank, so capacity is also estimated, a preliminary estimate is created, and then it is handed down to the contractor. So the contractor reworks on this and creates a detailed estimate of how much water they can store based on how much amount of expenditure that will be required to create that kind of a storage. Location of your water extraction pumps, or if there is a underground water supply which is done, if there is a borewell location which is there, so your pump location, how you will be dropping down the pump, if there is a well, water well around there, so how is that connected to your water supply, all of that is to be drawn on the drawings, right. So in your water supply layout, these are the things as we discussed earlier, your water inlet to the site, which becomes very important. Next is your water reservoir location, where you are storing your water, your storage facility is to be laid out. Then your sump location or your borewell, say you are having a basement and you have a sump there, so water will get collected around there, or water will be taken out from that particular storage as well. So in case of a basement, that will be there will be a much lower point within which you have to take out the water, so you need a sump level as well. So all of that is to be drawn. Along with that, your motor pump location, so where will you be putting down your water pump or motor pump, that is to be laid out. Again, it should not be conflicting. If it is a submersible pump, it can go directly in the tank, but if it is a pump which requires dry surroundings, it cannot be submerged in the water tank, then you have to designate that particular space as well, right, as per client needs and requirements. Any taps or water points that are there on the site, so all the interior taps are to be done in the interior layouts, all the exterior taps are to be drawn in the exterior layouts on the site plan, right. And all the hydrants, the fire hydrants which will be located, if there is a large site, as we started off in the first slide itself, that there will be fire hydrants in case of larger sites, so those are to be also mentioned, and sprinklers and fountains. So if in case of gardening, often people introduce sprinklers or fountains in certain cases in case of landscape of a particular site area. So in that case, all of those connections are also to be laid out. So moving on to next, so in case of your water supply connection coming to the building, right, so your water supply layout for the building is given separately as a plumbing layout, right. So and the plumbing layout is often given for individually each floor, right. So if you have a 5-floor building with all the floors having different sizes of bathroom, different cases of different styles of connections and detached and attached toilets. So all of those layouts are to be laid out in a certain way, and they are to be described in a certain way. If you have typical floor plans, like in case of a residential tower, in one of the examples when we were discussing floor plans, we did talk about that if you have a residential tower, of course often what happens is that you have a typical layout which is described, which will repeat over and over till the last floor where the typical layout stops. Beyond that, there is a terrace floor or a roof floor. So in that particular case, you have to give that typical layout as well. So you need to produce one typical layout of your water supply system, of electrical system, and all the other utilities which will be provided in that case. Often in present day and time, we have seen that the residential towers have started becoming 40 floors, 60 floors, and so on, so forth. So in several such cases, what happens is firefighting becomes a big challenge, and in that case, even the fire hydrants are also provided, and fire sprinklers are also provided within the apartments itself, which is a rarity in case of buildings which are about 5 floors or 6 floors, right. About 5 floors, fire hydrants are not that's commonly seen. But anyway, coming back to this, we do see that the layout should have two things. One is the correct size of pipes, right. So as you see in the layout here, is that if you see in this case, this is an example which is taken for irrigation, right. So in case of irrigation, what you have, or any connection which you are doing for building, then what happens is, say if you take this as an example to connect your first connection in a gardening area or a landscape area, then you will have your first wall here and your water supply will get connected with the dimension of pipe. So, you have the length of pipe which is 15 feet and this is your first pipe, right, and next is your 7 feet pipe, then you have a connection here, right. So, that is where it is getting directed. So, these are the lengths of the pipes and often what is shown right next to them is the dimension of the pipe, right. So, you will see that in subsequent slides. This is just a layout being provided as information. You will see more details in the next slides, in the coming subsequent slides, right. Next is what is important is your valve control points or places from where you can actually close the water line is to be provided. Along with that, you also need to give connections to all the appliances which are going to consume water, right. Particularly, your wall should also be located right before the connection of the water. For example, if you have an automatic washing machine and then that is being placed in the drying balcony or the wet area within some washing area within your residential layout. So, in that case your water supply would go there definitely, but along with that you will have a closing wall, a bip tap kind of a wall where you will be screwing and screwing the wall and closing it down, right. So, that will directly get connected to your washing machine. So, all of these layouts are to be drawn carefully, right. So, moving forward, so if you see a site like this, so in this case you will see that the site has an access and then along with that you have a, this is how all of your layouts will look like together. So, in this case you have your water source coming in, right. So, here you do have your water line which is going out all around, right. Then you do see the red X which is the power source. So, this is all the layouts for your particularly for your landscape area. So, in the lawns you have all of these connections going down and then you are going to have multiple sprinkler heads which are there which will be irrigating your lawns, right. So, this is one example where you will be irrigating the larger landscape or you are irrigating your lawns which are maybe in your house, right. So, going further, if you have your building layout, right. So, in the built up area you will have several different locations wherein you would require the water supply to be connected, right. So, for in case this example, if you see this the dashed line, this particular line which you see, this is where your water inlet is coming in, right, and it is going right directly in the underground water sump, right. So, in underground water sump you are storing the water, right. So, from here you have the inlet pipe which goes directly to your overhead water reservoir, right. So, here is where your overhead water reservoir is, right. So, you have your water coming in from here, it is being stored in this particular location and then you go on top and store that particular water supply there. For example, if you are going away from the site, if you will be going away, say for example a holiday or a vacation somewhere else, then in that case it may so happen that suddenly something gets damaged inside the house and you will lose a lot of water, right, which is a lot of waste. So, in that case you need to have a check, right, when you are starting to take intake coming out from the main water storage reservoir. This is the first wall that you will put, right. So, always when you are done with the intake and you connect to your reservoir, that is where you put your valve. In often cases a wall is also provided right at the inlet which is the site entry. So, in several cases, like for example in case of a residential tower, there will be a water supply shut off wall. It is often called as shut off wall. Right. So, a shut off wall is being placed right in the beginning. So, if you close that, then there will be no water supply going to the reservoir as well. So, basically there will not be any water in the site. So, that is what is being provided in a large site. Okay. So as to store and minimize the wastage which is there. which might happen potentially in case of a breaking of the line, right. And that also helps, because if in case, say for example, this particular water line breaks because of, or the water line is burst because of some issue or some pressure which is being put on top of this particular place, often what happens is when new new people are moving inside the house, they are bringing in their belongings and their luggage and their storage goods to be used in the new apartment which they have bought. So in that case, a large truck comes in, and then sometimes what happens is your truck moves on right on top of the water line, and because of the heavy pressure of the truck's weight, the water line breaks. So in that kind of a breakage, it is extremely difficult to actually stop that water, because it has a lot of force, it has a lot of pressure. So in that case, a shut off valve helps a lot, right. So moving on further with the line, so here you do see that once the connection is done, the next line goes in for the, for one case goes in for the sprinklers, right. So you have several different kinds of sprinklers which are placed all around the site, right. So you have several sprinklers which are placed. Along with that, you have different water taps which are required, right. So say for example, you require this for your car wash. Maybe the parking is here and you require this for your car wash. Maybe the lawn is here and you require it for your greening the lawn and watering the lawn, you require the sprinklers here. Maybe at the back of the place you have some area wherein you will probably do some resting time, and you also require a water supply, so you have a tap here. So likewise, there will be multiple locations where you will require the traps, where you will require the sprinklers. So likewise, you have the distribution done in that particular place. But if you observe, in every place wherever there would probably be a bulk drainage of water in case of a bursting of the pipeline, there is where you have given a valve. So all the pink boxes which you see are the valves, right. And there are several different representations of the valve which we will see in the subsequent slides. So in this particular case, often valves are also shown as this, or valves are also shown as this, right. So even in some case, in industrial cases as well, if you are doing a layout for a industrial floor plan or something like that, walls are often shown like this as well, right. So there are several different representations. Architect's office tend to follow one particular style, as we have discussed earlier. So there will be always a style template in each and every architect's office. So that style template also represents the way certain things are represented, and particularly in utilities, the same thing is followed all over, right. So, or in most of their projects. If there is a consultant, the consultant would also have their own template, and that will be followed. So in this particular case, we see a pink box as a wall, right. So that's the example. Moving on forward to the sewage layout. So in case of a sewage layout, the whole thing which is very important is you see that the proper planning of the wastewater is to be done, particularly solid waste and liquid waste is to be taken out properly. So it should not mingle, or it should not mix with the water lines or the water inlet line wherever we are trying to take it around the site, right. So in this case, if we see a sewage plan, you should always show the wastewater pipes, where the location of the wastewater pipe is, how the wastewater pipe is being taken out, and how it is going to take out the sullage, right. So the sullage is basically wastewater, right, which is from bathrooms, kitchens and other places. If you have a outside washing area, if you have a wet balcony where the washing machine water is drained out, so all of that is going to be connected to the sewer, right. So that is to be carried out in a piped encased way and to be drained out in the sewer line, right. So next is your sewage pipe layout, right. So in your sewage pipe layout, you have to have a wastewater connecting or collected from the sewage line, which is your washing closet, right. So your water closet, sorry. So in your WC or your toilet, the drain that comes out is called sewage, and in that case, your pipe carrying the sewage is also often called as soil pipe. right. So these are the two different things within the sewer layout, right. So your soil pipe is something that is to be kept separate from these two different lines, which is firstly your water supply line and secondly your sewer line, right. Next is your manhole, right. So manhole often are masonry chambers, or often if it is quite deep, if it is a deep manhole, then in that case you also have precast RCC manholes which are available, wherein you can actually go down, so it becomes really deep, right. So these are casted and they can be used. So these are basically chambers. So you can, the sewer line needs to have this at certain intervals, and these intervals are quite important, because if the line gets clogged, there will be a lot of waste which will be flowing unmonitored. So in that particular case, what may happen is it may contaminate your water supply, inlet water supply as well, and your wastewater, sewage water and all different kinds of utilities may get intermingled or get contaminated because of the drainage being burst, right. So in that case, the masonry chambers or the manholes actually help you to do cleaning. So manholes also have a cleaning grate or a cleaning mesh from which the additional waste which is not to be drained in that particular pipe, which is sewage pipe or waste pipe, can be collected separately, right. And these are placed at individual or intermittent intervals based on the distance of the sewer line and based on the distance of the wastewater line going towards the sewer, right. Lastly, there are traps. So traps are basically fittings which are at the end of soil pipes. So in particularly in case of your toilet connections or your water closet connections, if you see there will be a P trap or an S trap, right. So in that particular case, that actually traps waste from coming back, and it also helps you siphon the waste effectively. And the most important thing is it locks or creates a seal from foul gases coming back through the pipe within the toilet premises or other premises. So you often see that there are P traps, nanny traps, S traps, which are being placed at different locations. Nanny traps are in bathroom, P and S trap are in the wash closet or water closet, right. So this is how it is being laid out. So these are 4 important points if we look at the sewage layout to be remembered, right. So these are very critical. So moving forward, so in this particular case, if you observe, so here is where we see the side sewage plant, right. So all the green lines, all the green large lines which we see, they are 3-inch PVC lines, right. And what are they connected to? They are predominantly connected to taking out all the sullage, right. So all your bathroom fixture layout, bathroom fixture drainage which will be coming out, that is to be connected. So that becomes the main drain from where you will be draining out all of the wastewater, right. In this particular case, if you see the blue lines which are there, which are 2-inch PVC pipes. So in the blue lines which you will see, they are taking out your laundry drains, your tub drains. In the kitchen line as well, you are connecting all of these drainages together, and then it will be drained to the main red line, which will collect actually the soil drain which is coming from the toilet, right. So all of these are interconnected, but kept also separately from the wastewater and the sewage line, right. So that is where it is differentiating, right. So even here if you observe, there is an orange line, even here if you observe, there is an orange line, right. That is taking the grey water connected to the soil line, right. So in this case, if we see the side sewage line, so what happens in this case, you have a built up area, right, that is your apartment. So away from the water line, if you remember the previous slide, there was some water supply here, so it is quite away, and the main water inlet line was somewhere around here, right. So it's separate from that. So what happens, the direction is outward. So probably here is where you have your toilet. So here is where you will have your first inspection chamber and your gully trap, right. So you are collecting all the waste. So in the gully trap, your rodents or your other pest which might enter the house, they are being trapped out, right? So you will have your first trap here, and beyond that is your first inspection chamber, right? So that is where you turn the line as well. So you have your silage pipe which goes all around the site, and then after a certain distance you have your first manhole, right, to do the checking. In your inspection chamber gets another soil pipe which is connected maybe from a toilet here, and there is probably another toilet here and probably a bathroom here. So all of these different soil pipes will be connecting to the main drain line, and it will go to the municipal sewer line. All of it is being drained out to the municipal sewer line, right? If in case the municipal sewer line is a bit away or it's far off, then the slope of the line becomes quite deep, and then it will be connected to that particular line with a manhole. Going further, so you will have the drainage layout, right? So along with your soil drain or your wastewater drain, which is your sewage layout, a drainage layout is also to be connected, also to be created. This is particularly to direct the surface water flow, right? So often in case of large buildings, or often in case of even small buildings, you have something called as rainwater harvesting, right? So what is that? So in this case, if there is a lot of rain happening in that particular area, for example, if we see this particular case, then what happens? You have sloping roof, right, and all the water is being drained down. There will be downpour. Downpour meaning a pipe will be connected which is taking out water from all the gutters which will be here, around here, right? So all of that water will be taken in and it will be drained out like this. So from that, it may be collected together and it may be stored in a rainwater ground tank, underground tank, which will be collecting all the rainwater, or it may be drained out to be percolated naturally. So in this case, this dotted line which we see, this is probably the area where it will be percolating through the soil within the groundwater aquifers, right? So these are separate ways or different ways in which drainage is collected or drainage layout is to be made, right? So the critical purpose is to direct the surface water or direct the rainwater to the from the built environment to a safe point, whether a storage or you are basically percolating it down in the ground aquifer, right? And then often in large cases or in large buildings, this also is called as stormwater drain or rainwater drain, right? So there are several different ways to name this, right, or different offices in different of DCRs, which is development control regulations and rules. So in several cities or several municipal corporations, they also interchangeably name it as stormwater drain, wastewater drain, stormwater drain, surface water drain, or rainwater drain, right? There are three different ways to call this. Now what are its components? The first thing is you will have gutters. Gutters which will be on ground, and they will be collecting all of this drainage which is coming from different places. Also within your building, if you have a sloping roof, you are supposed to have a gutter all along the roof, right, all along the sloped surfaces. So you will have your gutter, say for example in this case the gutter will be going around here, in this case it will be going around here, in this case it will be going around here, right? So that is how it is to be organized, okay? So going further, you will have drainages from all the hard surfaces, right? For example, you have a flat terrace, right, and it is accessible. So at the ends of the drainage, as we saw in the terrace plan, you also need to allocate locations so that you can collect and drain out the rainwater. So all of those hard surfaces are to be treated in a certain way. Then you have soft landscaping. In case of a large landscape, you also need to have certain degree of rolling slope, or else what will happen? Water will stagnate there. So that rolling slope is often, in this particular case, if you observe, there is two arrows which are pointing towards the edge of this particular site, right? So these are the rolling slopes with which the water will run off, or it will be drained out towards the edge of the property, where there will probably be a storage point connected through a gutter, or there will be underground storage tank to which it is connected, or there will be something called as rain gardens, wherein you will actually be allowing the water to percolate down naturally. Okay. So, that is what is very important. Storage tank, as we already discussed, that it will be collecting all the drain lines water, all the stormwater drain lines or all the rainwater drain lines water, and to be stored after it settles down with all the mud that it is carrying. Once the mud is settled down, you can use the water for your property landscape, right? So, watering your property landscape, right? And beyond that is your above ground level stormwater drain, right? So, you would have some gutters which will be all along the property line or all along the hard and soft surfaces at the intervention of hard and soft surface, so that the runoff which goes down here, probably you will have a gutter running along all along this line. So, this collects all the water and then it will be going out, connecting the main water storage point, right? Rainwater storage point, or wherever you want to drain it off, right? So, this is how it is being done, right? So, that is very, very important. So, in this particular case, if we see a sketchy idea of how actually to do the site drainage storage or site drainage plan, is you will have a particular house which is like this, and then in this particular case you do see that the lines are a bit crooked. So, what does that mean? That basically means that this particular drainage line or this particular house, whenever there is a drainage, it will be drained off to this area, right, which is actually a storage spot, okay, and there is where it is called as a dispersion trench. So, what happens in this particular trench is you collect all of the water in this particular area, which is a steep slope, right, and then from that you actually create a connection which is going to take all of your water to a wetland area for natural percolation. So, that basically means that your site is actually sloped like this overall, right. There is a contour which is present in the site. That is why all of your water is being drained off like this, right. Okay. So, that is very, very important in case of that same layout which we were talking earlier, right. So, in this case, if you have your site which is quite flat, and then you will have a lot of sprinklers which are around the site, right. So, you had a tap here, you had a sprinkler here, you had another sprinkler here, there was another tap here, then you had sprinklers here, right. So, in this case, when your sprinklers are watering all of this area and suddenly say it starts raining, say for example it starts raining. So, what will happen? Your site has rolling slopes which will be draining the water to say this particular drainage, this particular drain grate, this particular drain grate and other areas, right. So, this is how it is done. In case of your roof, if the roof is say slightly sloped or even if it is flat, you will have a water collection point, right, and you are collecting all the water from here that comes down to the water harvesting tank, right. Often the surface water drain, if it is paved, only in that case it is connected to the water rainwater harvesting tank. If it is not paved, then it is drained off to an external municipal drainage line, right, which is called as the stormwater line, the large line which is there outside, right. So, these are the smaller nuances or smaller differences which are there, right. So, in case the example which I was telling earlier, that when you are connecting your surface drain gutter directly to your rainwater harvesting, you let your soil you let your suspended particles settle down. Once the water clears, then you can use it for gardening. In that particular example, my whole idea was that you do this only when you are only when you have pavement, solid pavement or paver blocks being laid out in your site. Only then you can collect all of that water, else your water will get contaminated with other surface runoff. Say for example, open drain gets overflown and that water meets with the surface water which you are taking from your stormwater drain, then there will be a lot of problem, particularly in your rainwater harvesting tank. So often it is not done, but in case of larger towers with a lot of paved area, this is also possible to do. So that's about the drainage. Coming to the electrical layout, so in this particular case, this is separate. This also has a flow of power, but this is separate from all the three earlier utilities which we were talking about, right? And electricity and water should not meet. That is kind of a common sense thing which is to be practiced in all sites, right? So this is to be definitely kept separate of all of the earlier utilities which we talked about, right? So in case of electrical layout, these are quite important, and as I mentioned earlier as well, that individual floor layouts are to be provided along with a complete site electrical layout, right? So two types of layouts are to be created in this particular case, right? And what are the critical things in particular of the site plan? One is your electric distribution box position. So where exactly you will be putting down your electric distribution box or DB box, which is called as or denoted as. So that is to be clearly mentioned. Next, the number of light poles or exterior illumination that you will be doing, that is to be marked. The kind of bulbs that will be there, the kind of fixtures that will be there, all of that can be denoted in different ways, and then it can be represented. Okay. And lastly, your generator location. So if in case of large sites, you will also have power generators, right? So diesel generators or something of that sort. So in that particular case, you also need to specify the location of this particular generator. In going forward with that, sometimes very large sites, say a logistic park or something like that, will also have a small substation which is inside, right? So that substation is also to be clearly spotted where it will be located on the site, right? Now this is just a small snippet of a electrical layout, say in case of a landscape area which has a lot of exterior. So what happens in that particular case is you have your main box which is here, right? So your distribution is coming here, and these lights are connected in series. So all the dotted lines which you see, here is where this particular line ends. It goes from here to here and it ends here. There is no line connecting this point and this point, right? So this stops here, and this is connected with a separate line, right? Similarly here, this is connected with a separate line. So all of these blue dotted lines are basically wires. All of the pink circles which you see are basically your lighting fixtures, correct? So this is how basically you will be doing your landscape illumination or your site illumination of sorts, right? Now to take an example of this, you have a site, and within that site you have several different places which are to be connected with the electrical supply, right? So in this case, you will have your distribution box which is right here, right? So your first distribution box is connected, then a main line goes out and you will be distributing power from that point onwards, right? So you are distributing power, say you are providing power to this layout, then you are giving it to this layout. This is a large master plan of a particular station area, right? So these are different buildings with which it will be connected. So all the individual dots which we see are actually the smaller layouts. So this is kind of a large master plan which will be provided for that particular location, right? Going further, if we see it in a smaller area, so in case of a large layout where you have multiple buildings like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on, all the grey boxes which you see are actually buildings. So this is a large area, so your first layout has to be of this scale. If it is a very large building area, right? If it is a very large site, so in that particular case you will draw a layout like this. Going further, you will be drawing the smaller layout of the detail of this particular site, right? So the first layout is to be showing how you will be distributing the light, right? How you will be distributing the power, right? So you have your electric dB box, right? So your mains might be drawn directly to the layout. So your mains are probably coming like this. So often mains are not being shown, but probably the mains are coming like this. So I'm just showing it. So mains are coming here, then you have your distribution box here, and from the distribution box you are connecting to the exterior post lights or bollard lights and so on and so forth, right? So you have bollards all along your way. So the way people will approach, you will have bollard lights on both sides. So all the blue spots which you see are basically bollard lights to direct the people to the correct path to the entrance of your particular building, right? And along with that you have some sitting area in two places. Then you might also have a post light all around that to illuminate that particular area, right? So that's all about the electrical layout, how you will be doing the electrical layout, particularly at the site level. All right, so that was about the module today, and moving on to the next module, we will be coming back to you. Thank you very much.